The air is crisp and fresh, awakening the nostrils. The leaves are changing color, awakening the eyes. But the nights are longer, and people are sleeping more. It is Wednesday, October 11th, and it has been 6 days since the first person went missing in Abeltown. Reports have now circulated throughout the town, rumors and rumblings spreading through coffee shops and cafes, workers on their lunch break, that a person has gone missing. Kelly Baker, wife of a local insurance agent, mother of two, lives off of Bronsted Ave, liked by many and a friendly citizen of the town, gone without a trace. Morris Baker is sitting in the county sheriff's office, his hands clasped and pressed between his knees. He's leaning forward in his chair. His muscles are tense and his face is clammy. The sheriff's mug of coffee is steaming on his table, amongst piles of papers. The sheriff, sporting a thick black mustache and a brown sheriff's jacket. His hat is off and sitting on the opposite side of the table. He is calmly observing Mr. Baker. The lieutenant sits in a chair at the side of the room, taking notes. Morris has been called into the sheriff's office after Kelly had failed to appear at her work today, her belongings all still at home except for her cell phone, and her car remained in their home's driveway. "Did you notice anything unusual with Kelly this morning, or anything different about Kelly last night?" the sheriff asks Mr. Baker. No, not really," Mr. Baker thinks carefully, focusing as he tries to pry his memory. "We watched television after dinner. I stayed up a bit longer on my phone after she went to bed. She was asleep when I went to bed," he replied. "And this morning?" "She was gone by the morning." "And that's not unusual?" "She usually wakes up before me. Usually I'll see her before I head out, but it's not unusual for her to have an early start." "Did she say she was planning to leave early when you saw her yesterday?" "No, she didn't." Mr. Baker pauses for a while as he sits with the sheriff. "You know, how about I just go home and try to make some more calls? I'm sure she's just gone to run some errands, or gone to help out her family across town." "Of course, Mr. Baker. You can go shortly. As you know, we located her phone in a ditch along Briar Street. It was the only thing she had taken from home, and now she doesn't even have that. So we're just trying to collect as much information here as possible. With the recent disappearance of Mr. Bourdet, you can understand our heightened level of concern." Yes, of course," Mr. Baker responds submissively. After providing his report, Mr. Baker returns home in time for dinner. His two children are waiting on him, slightly shocked and confused, but not quite accepting that their mother has gone missing. Mr. Baker orders them pizza, and he and his two daughters mingle around the kitchen island, informally having decided this will be their situation room. He continues to make calls to all possible contacts, but no one has seen her today. Down Bronsted Ave, Mr. Pack wakes up midway through the night to take a pee. He heads downstairs to grab a glass of milk. As he drinks the cold milk in his kitchen, he sees what looks like the outline of a human figure outside of the window at his kitchen sink. He flicks off the kitchen light to get a better look. He is frozen in fear. 2 feet from his face, directly on the other side of the window, is the face of a woman staring blankly at him directly in the eyes. A terror washes over him that cannot be imagined. He retreats to his kitchen light switch while trying to keep his eyes on the window. He throws on all the lights and any visibility to outside vanishes. He steps outside and looks around the side of the house to see if the woman is still there. She is not. He circles his entire house before heading back inside. "It was Miss Baker. It was Miss Baker, I swear. It had to be," he is saying to his wife. "But are you sure? You aren't just seeing things?" his wife asks. "Yes, exactly. I'm seeing things. Miss fucking Baker is what I saw," he exclaims. "Black hair, tallish, medium build. I swear. Looked just like her." The Packs turn on their backyard lights and look out the other windows around their house. They're too cowardly to go outside again. They'll address it tomorrow. It is Thursday morning. The sheriff is at his desk investigating backyard security camera footage from last night that was brought by the Richards family to the station. The son of the Richards household, who was up late last night playing video games, had seen the motion-activated lights for their backyard switch on between 1 and 2 a.m. last night. Their backyard backs onto Abeltown Forest. The lieutenant is standing over the sheriff's shoulder as the sheriff plugs in a USB stick into a laptop and opens the file with the footage. "Look, right there," the sheriff points out as the figure of a man has emerged a few feet from the forest and stopped as the backyard lights switched on. The man is standing stiff, looking up at the second story of the Richards household. The Richards' son Blake at this time had raised his blinds to see the man better, to confirm if the man was in fact looking at him or something else. "Jesus Christ, Lieutenant, look how he's standing, all stiff," the sheriff says. The man's clothes are worn down, and he is dirty. He looks like he's in a trance, possessed or something, just staring like that, the lieutenant says. After Blake had gone to get his parents from their bedroom, the man was gone. Has to be Mr. Bourdet. I recognize those clothes, the sheriff says, as he groans and shuts the laptop as if to prevent the footage from disturbing him any further. The phone rings in the sheriff's office, and it is Mr. Pack making a call to submit his report. You said she was looking at you, Mr. Pack? Looking directly at you? The sheriff confirmed. Yes, Sheriff. It was like she was lost, or confused, or something. Didn't react to me at all, he replied. Jesus Christ, that's creepy as shit. Mr. Bourdet is acting the same damn way in this damn footage. The sheriff coughs a few times to gather himself. Thank you, Mr. Pack, the sheriff says. Let's all just keep our eyes out. The sheriff hangs up the phone and his body goes limp in his chair. He exhales a long sigh and stares wide-eyed with puffed cheeks at the vinyl floor in front of his desk. The lieutenant is sitting at the side of the room with a notepad, listening intently. Jesus Christ, Lieutenant, I feel like I'm being watched right now. I never wanted to be a part of a case like this, I tell ya. This stuff is creeping me the fuck out. You know, you see this stuff on TV, but I'm just not cut out for this. Our department isn't big enough for this shit. The lieutenant is sitting and nodding. Fuck, let's do a sweep of Abeltown Forest tonight. See what we can see. Get a night watch set up. Can we get more men? The sheriff asks. I don't believe so, the lieutenant responds. Freelytown won't help after all that went down with them last year. Fuck, the sheriff responds in resignation, rubbing his mustache and looking up at the ceiling. The town arranges for a group of those willing to stay up through the night to keep watch for Ms. Baker and Mr. Bourdet. At least one person on each of the 20 main streets running through Abeltown has agreed to help with the watch. They are all instructed to keep their lights out in order to limit the glare on their windows as they watch outside. The sun has set and the sheriff and lieutenant get in a truck and head to Abeltown Forest, near to the Richards house and where Mr. Bourdet had been spotted. They park in a pull-off, grab their heavy-duty police flashlights, and head into the forest to begin their scan. They are walking side by side, scanning the forest from left to right. As they reach deeper into the forest and they are engulfed by darkness, the sheriff begins swiveling his head and frantically checking over his shoulders. Get behind me, Lieutenant, the sheriff says. Yes, sir, the lieutenant responds. Let's try to move back to back, the sheriff says. I don't think that's possible, sir, the lieutenant responds. I could easily lose my footing. Okay, just keep an eye out for behind us. They continue navigating the forest and have almost come to the Richards property. Fuck, what was that, Lieutenant? I think just a small animal, possibly, sir. The sheriff is noticeably tense. He is moving stiffly and uneasily now through the forest. His stomach feels like it is in his balls. If it were to come to fight or flight, he would very much freeze in this moment. Too many fucking sticks in this forest, the sheriff says. The voice of a man and woman are coming from in the forest. They are not whispering, but talking casually. The sheriff and lieutenant are too far to see them or make out what they're saying. Hello? Anybody there? The lieutenant calls out. It's just the lieutenant and sheriff here. Ms. Baker, Ms. Bourdet, the sheriff calls out. They hear a pair of footsteps approaching them. The sheriff becomes snagged by a tree branch as they approach the voices. He panics and screams, turning swiftly with his gun drawn to the suspect branch. The lieutenant is watching him, his eyes wide in shock. He motions his palms towards the ground in a diffusing gesture. Let's get out of here, Lieutenant. I got a bad feeling about this. I'm not going to dance around this forest with these freaks all night. We need more men. The lieutenant and the sheriff exit the forest through the Richards' backyard. The backyard light switches on as they make their way through the backyard and around the house to the street. They loop back to their truck along the lit streets in silence. They receive a late-night call that Mr. Bourdet may have been spotted as Ms. Lehner was out walking her dog this evening. The sheriff goes to his parents' house to check that they are doing okay. Feeling uneasy about the goings-on, he decides to stay with them the night. He gathers some blankets and makes himself comfortable on the living room couch. He is having trouble falling asleep. He checks his phone and it is now 2 a.m. He goes to the kitchen to make himself a cup of tea to settle him. At 3 a.m., he wakes from his shallow sleep, and from the couch which is facing the side door of the house, he sees a figure is standing outside, obscured by the thin curtain over the window. The sheriff stays still, pretends to remain asleep, and dials the lieutenant. Sheriff, the lieutenant answers. Lieutenant, get on over to my parents' house, he whispers. We have someone standing at our east door. Park at least a block away. Don't let the fucker hear you. Yes, sir. I'll be right over. The lieutenant is making his way quietly through the backyards of the neighboring homes. He is slouching slightly to try to keep out of sight of the perpetrator. He squeezes out from between two spruce trees and draws his gun to the ready, shining his flashlight on the figure. Mr. Pack, freeze right there, he says. As the sheriff hears the arrival of the lieutenant, he slowly and quietly emerges out of the front door and down the front porch of the house. As they both begin closing in on Mr. Pack, who has still not moved, the lieutenant sees a little boy dart from the other side of the house toward the street, crossing behind the sheriff. "Sheriff, we have another," he yells. The sheriff turns quickly and pursues the boy. The boy is getting away from the sheriff. The sheriff yells at him to stop, but the boy darts across the street and into the darkness of the forest. The sheriff shines his light into the forest and sees nothing. He hears a couple of gunshots ring out. He runs quickly back to the house. "What the hell happened, Lieutenant?" the sheriff yells. "He was coming for me, Sheriff. I don't know," he is saying frantically. He drops his gun and falls to his knees and puts his hands on his head in distress. "He was staring, just staring, and closing in on me. Did you have any reason to shoot, Lieutenant?" "He looked like he had bad intentions, sir. I told him to stop and put his hands on his head, but he just kept advancing. I'm sorry, sir. I was scared," he says as he begins crying. It's okay, Lieutenant," the sheriff says as he pats him on the back, looking out at the confounding situation they've found themselves in. It is Friday night, and the sheriff is unhappy to have noticed that it is Friday the 13th. He is back in his own home tonight. The Richards are driving their van through the streets of Abeltown. They have not slept since he went missing. With the help of others, they are calling out for their boy Blake and the others missing. The whole town is tired, slowly becoming run down. The lieutenant is staring from the darkness into the sheriff's home. He doesn't know why he is here. He is slightly conscious of what he is seeing, but not in control, as if he is sleepwalking. He feels empty and without purpose, but not out of place. If he could wake up from this odd state, he would. The sheriff is coming up from his basement stairs and sees the lieutenant's uniform through his back window. The sheriff is scared. He can barely breathe. He inches along the wall closer to the window and becomes able to see that the lieutenant's eyes are locked on him. The sheriff's legs crumple under him.